Thank you all for being here. I appreciate everyone who's here in attendance, our members of the media as well as staff and community members, school board members, and we appreciate this opportunity to share with you our plan of action as we move forward. As you know, this morning, and we had the release of the Kentucky Auditor of Public Accounts review of Fayette County Public Schools. Auditor Adam Edlin did share this morning, as you know, that there is no money missing and there's been no criminal activity within the district. However, he did mention quite a few issues and concerns that we need to address. But I do want to emphasize that all public dollars are accounted for and the original allegations of improper journal entries causing a budget shortfall were not true. But again, we do have a lot of difficult decisions ahead for our district. Many of the auditor's 78-page report findings that we find there cause me difficulty and are very deeply troubling. And it is absolutely about kids in Fayette County, but certainly these adult issues have clouded that issue. And so we were going to take bold action to change the behaviors, habits, and culture in our district central office to consistently reflect those values. Very early in my tenure, despite previous attempts to address the issues, I noted significant areas of dysfunction resulting from a serious lack of communication and professionalism between our departments of budget and staffing and Department of Finance. In an effort to bring about best practices and to address these situations, we applied for and received a grant to streamline budget and staffing practices and provide greater public involvement and transparency. The added scrutiny uncovered many of the same findings that our auditor found, including budget figures that had been changed without board or superintendent knowledge, and plug figures being used to make budgets appear to balance and improper financial reports being used in the development of the budget. I want to emphasize that we had already begun to take steps to correct these problems and to look at restructuring of our operations, and this was imminent this past spring, but we put those plans on hold when the allegations were made. That is why we welcome the external perspective of the State Auditor. The State Auditor's recommendation reinforced our belief that we must overhaul the operations of our budget and staffing and finance departments. So we will conduct an extensive review of the policies and procedures and practices in these areas related to budgeting, accounting, internal auditing, trust fund administration, and other things. Although we did take issue with some of the specific allegations noted in the report itself does show us that we need to embrace the recommendations that were contained within the report and will begin to implement changes swiftly. The district's full response to the audit, along with the evidence pointing out the incorrect allegations, will be available on our webpage at fcps.net/audit. Most notable is the incorrect assertion that district-level administrators received a 24.7% raise while teachers received a 9.88% raise between 2010 and 2014. I want to emphasize that every employee who worked for the district during that time period and stayed in the same position received the same raises. Employees at the district office and in our schools who changed jobs, took on additional duties, or earned advanced degrees would have different compensation in accordance with the salary schedule. In order to address these and the many other issues that we have seen that have been reported in the report, as well as what we have found ourselves, I am asking two members of our community that are well respected to look into this situation to provide an independent assessment of this situation. A veteran Department of Education leader in the area of budget and finance will work with our district team, and that's Ms. Keena Coe, and Keena is right back here. Keena is a former Associate Commissioner of the Kentucky Department of Education, as well as has extensive work within the General Assembly and OEA, LRC, as well as here in Lexington City Government. Also, Mr. Mike Thompson, who is also right here, will begin to work in the area of conflict resolution, team building, to deal with our staff to work through the personnel issues that we have experienced. Working together, we will address the dysfunction, the toxic relationship that's developed within and between our departments. As we move forward, it is important that we improve in all areas and all aspects of our operations. And so we will have three primary focus areas. One, assessing the overall structure, organization, and processes within our departments, this will be led by Keena Coe. Our conflict resolution and team building, which will be led by Mr. Mike Thompson. And then I will make every effort to make this the entire focus that we have as a district central office team over the next 60 days as we develop our corrective action plan that will be submitted to the State Auditor. Ultimately, we must make sure that the focus remains on kids and that we get back to the business of moving student achievement forward in our district. We cannot let these adult issues detract and distract us any longer. At this point, I would like to ask Mr. John Price, our school board chairman, if he would come forward and make some remarks. And also, as John comes forward, I want you to know that I didn't recognize him earlier, but Bill Meyer, who's a partner from Strothman & Company, who is the CPA firm that conducts our annual audit, is here as well. And so after John makes his comments, I'll be available to answer questions. And then upon the completion of this time, myself, as well as other members of our staff and board are here, as well as Ms. Coe and Mr. Thompson and Mr. Meyer to answer your questions. But I recognize John at this time.
Just want to thank you all for being here this afternoon to report on our response to the State Auditor's report. My remarks will be very brief. Basically, the most important points that I wish to make are, one, there was no criminal activity as was alleged. And I would like to see that on the news this evening. I don't want to read all this detailed stuff. I want you to report the big picture. The big picture is there was no criminal activity. And the other big picture, there was not $20 million missing. Tom has addressed some of the recommendations that he plans to bring to the board in order to work on the problems which were illustrated in the auditor's report. As board members, last evening after 9 p.m., we received more than 70 pages. So we're obviously going to need a little bit more additional time to review and digest this in detail and work with Tom on coming up with a corrective action plan, which has to be completed within 60 days. Most importantly, I want to stress the importance that the vast majority of our staff and teachers do care about our kids. They come to work every day and do what is absolutely best for our kids, and that a few bad apples do not spoil the whole bunch. We have great employees in Fayette County that are making great strides in improving the work that our students can and will do in the future. And I do believe that when you meet challenges, it makes you stronger. So I think that as a district, we will work through the challenges that are presented in this report, and in the end, we'll address what needs to be addressed and correct what needs to be addressed, and our district will be stronger and our students will benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. At this time, I'd be happy to entertain any questions. And again, we do have Ms. Keena Coe, Mr. Mike Thompson, Mr. Bill Meyer here as well, who would be happy to address any of your comments or questions.
Are you anticipating making any changes in terms of staffing in the financial services division or the budget division?
We had actually already begun looking at a restructuring and a different organizational structure within that team. That's what led to this situation being escalated. And so we will work with Ms. Coe to submit that information to her, but let her make an assessment to hear those recommendations before any decisions would be made.
I'll be a little bit more direct. Will Julaine and Rodney keep their jobs?
As I was just indicating, we'll wait until we do the assessment and work with Ms. Coe to look at the structure of our organization and determine a full investigation of these issues before we make that determination.
I saw in your email to staff, you described the relationship past tense was toxic. Is that on purpose? Is it no longer toxic?
We have been working to improve it, and I believe it has improved. I believe both staff members and those departments recognize the issues and concerns that are there, so I believe it's getting better, but it still needs to get much better, and we'll continue to work in that way.
The fact that you're planning conflict resolution training, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's an important part of it. We can't only look at the technical side of issues. We have to look at the human side of issues. We know in every workplace there are always people who don't get along. There are people that struggle with personality conflicts and issues, and it's important that we address those appropriately and adequately, because people's perceptions become valid concerns that we need to work through in order that it doesn't impede the working environment.
Apart from the corrective action plan, are you planning to request any more reports from the State Auditor?
Well, we have to submit a corrective action plan within 60 days to the State Auditor, and we would certainly want them to review the plan to see if they feel it's acceptable and addresses the issues and concerns. We have a great ongoing relationship with our external financial auditors as well as the Department of Education, and we'll also rely on them as we move forward in this process. At this point, I don't see the need if we address the problems and move forward.
How responsible do you feel for all of this that's been going on?
Ultimately, it's all my responsibility. The board, I'm the board's employee as the chief executive officer of the district, and ultimately, everything that happens in the district is my responsibility. And so it's my responsibility to make sure these actions are addressed to the satisfaction of our board and of all of our constituencies.
Are you at all embarrassed that this is happening underneath your nose?
Embarrassed is not a good word. What I would say is I feel like it has been a distraction that has kept us from being able to focus on what our true mission and purpose is, and the distraction has gone on too long, and it's time to address it and to be able to move forward. Valerie, I'm sorry.
This grant to bring in these people from the outside?
The Gates grant that we received was $1.2 million total. It was a 70-30 breakdown of the breakdown of that grant between what the district supplied of in-kind services that we already had and what was provided through the Gates Foundation. For district management consultants, the firm that's working with us over a 1.5-year period.
What's the name of the firm?
DMC is what they go by, District Management Consultants. They're out of Boston.
Do you not have people on staff that teach teenagers how to resolve conflict that can't do the same with staff?
Well, we certainly do have staff internal, but we feel since we are having these issues internal within our staff that it's important that we bring in someone from the outside who is objective into this process.
As many people as you have on your management staff, I question how come this went this long without somebody recognizing that this was being detrimental to the entire operation of the schools.
Well, as I'd indicated earlier, we're fully aware of it. It's been dealt with over time for quite a while. There were previous efforts made by previous administration to address this issue, and there's been ongoing issues that have been addressed over the time.